All right, I want to thank you, Henry, Mr. Reginald, and Emma for joining me today to be able to help me as the young buck to understand this coming up election season. I'm thinking through, I live in my town and I start to see a lot of signs and yards and corners, and I need to understand these positions and I need to understand these people, what are they running for, and the job responsibilities. And so today, that's kind of my job, to just really flesh out what you guys help me understand, because I'm just coming to you guys trying to understand what are these positions, and for people who wanting to vote, want to understand what they're voting for, who they're voting for. So the first thing that I had up is city council. What is city council? And can you give me a brief description of that? And when people are voting for you, what can they expect from you?
Okay, well, I don't know how brief I'll be, but I'll try. That's two questions in one.
Right.
So the city council in Jonesboro is made up of 12 members. There are 6 wards in Jonesboro, and there are 2 councilmen representing each ward. There is a position 1 and a position 2 representing city council. This election, all the position 2s are up for election. So any sitting council member that's in position 2 is running for re-election. I'm running for a position 2 seat, but the former councilman has retired. So that seat is actually vacant, and there are 4 of us running for that seat. Now, what the city council does is to, the mayor is actually the ex officio chairman of the city council. So he sets the agenda and runs the meeting for the city council. City council meets twice a month on the first and third Tuesday of each month. And when they meet, they follow the agenda that the mayor has set. Within the city council, there are also subcommittees. And so oftentimes these subcommittees will submit to the mayor agenda or action items. And so those will go on the agenda at the mayor's discretion. And so the city council votes. The mayor runs the day-to-day, but any ordinance, resolutions, budgets, things of that nature have to be approved by the city council. And so it has to pass by majority, which is at least 7 votes. The mayor only votes if there is a tie. And so in order for there to be a quorum of the city council, there must be 7 members present. But basically the city council runs the city along with the mayor as far as determining things that should happen, building permits, zoning changes, ordinances, things of that nature. So I won't read this long list unless you ask specifically about something.
Can I ask a question? I read somewhere that actually does the city council act like the legislative branch of city government? Is that a truism?
I guess sort of, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of, I guess loosely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I guess you could say that kind of loosely.
And explain your question. What did you mean by that question, Henry?
So the reason why I asked that is, Emma had said that, the mayor sets the agenda, but things get approved by city council. So when one particular group has an agenda or something gets in conflict, there is a body or a system, a government that is a series of checks and balances. So the city council is the checks and balance for the mayor and vice versa. So they work in conjunction that way. How do they work together?
Gotcha. Okay. So they are in constant communication, the city council and the mayor.
Right.
Okay, gotcha. Now you said something about this is just position 2. Is position 1 a different election than this current election?
No, the council elections are staggered.
Okay.
So they run for 4 years, and so every 2 years, one position is running. So position 1 positions will be running in 2 years.
Okay.
So they're staggered. So at all times, you've got some sitting councilmen, so you don't end up with just a whole slew of new people trying to feel their way and learn their way around. So that's why they are staggered that way. But it will be in the next election. This one just happens to be falling the year of the general election.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that. So now it's broken up in wards.
Mm-hmm.
Just very vaguely, when it's ward, is that just different parts of the city that people are over? So if I was somebody that lived in Ward 1 or Ward 2, would this city council speak for my ward for whatever the things that I would like to have the mayor look at? Is that kind of how I need to look at city council if I live in that ward?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Jonesboro has councilmen have to live in the ward they're running for, but they run citywide. So while I am running in Ward 1, anybody in the city of Jonesboro will have the opportunity to vote for me. And so, but ideally in Ward 1, people can go to any councilman and have them advocate for them, but ideally I would develop that relationship with my ward where they would feel comfortable coming to me if they felt they had issues that need to be addressed. I had questions about something that was going on.
Okay. All right. So next position that I'm going to focus on is going to be the city clerk. Now, I don't believe anybody was focused on the city clerk right now, but I am curious to know who could help me understand what are the roles when you are referring to the city clerk, and what's different from city clerks and city council.
Well, you want to? Well, I can talk a little bit about it, mainly because I used to work at the city. But the city clerk is actually the go-between for citizens and the mayor's office. Okay. And the city clerk keeps the minutes of all the council meetings. She does the roll call at the council meetings, keep minutes. She also helps sets the agenda, well, input the agenda, I guess I should say, make sure the agenda is put up. She makes sure that the meetings run smoothly, and she keeps a record of all those minutes. You have something?
Yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. And this is Reginald Prunty. The city clerk responsibility basically is to maintain the public records, oversee city council meetings, manage legal information, issue license and permits, and coordinate elections. So that person actually, the role that the mayor has and the role that the city council has, she has the duly position of doing both roles in one. So that she also keeps the mayor and the city on track. Her responsibility is to inform the public by, i.e., newspaper, radio, any form like social media. They have to let the people know, the city clerk does. That's who gets the information out to the people. So she's bound to do those things. The other thing that the city clerk also does is whenever they have city ordinances that are going to be put, it's her job to put it on the docket or on the agenda.
Okay.
That's her role, is to make sure that agenda is done. Okay. If you want to speak or get on the agenda, the city clerk is who you would call to get added to the agenda, not just the public speaking what they have at the end of the council meeting. You can literally get on the agenda, and you would actually put on the agenda and come up in order.
Okay.
If the mayor approves it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would still have to be approved by the mayor.
Still has to be approved.
But also there is, I will add, there's a lot of technology that goes with the city clerk job, because there is a software program called Legistar that the city clerk operates, and that those ordinances have to go into for state records, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, so it's a pretty big job.
Okay.
It's a large job.
Yeah, it's a big job.
I can tell. I can tell. I'm over here listening like, man, I didn't know. I didn't know city clerk was that deep.
It is.
Okay. That's interesting. So city clerk is more involved, I guess, because they have to be on top of pretty much their toes to making sure they have everything prepared and done. So therefore, it's coming forward. Mayor can be able to look at this and understand. Like you said, that's the middle person for the people, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Okay.
But I want to conclude that on very short data. So what are the duties and responsibilities of the city clerk? Is recording data, transcribing, typing, and I ain't got my glasses on. I can't even see it.
Transcribing, typing, and proofreading.
Right.
Documents.
See.
Proofreading.
Read the rest, Emma.
Filing, storing, and maintaining records, preparing and maintaining official reports, legal documents, and financial records, and ensuring that the public has access to public records.
Okay.
I can give a really good example that may help understand this a little bit better. So when the NAACP was fighting to have the street renamed in honor of Dr. King, it was the city clerk's office that we had to go through to, number one, help us draft an ordinance. Number two, to help us get it on the agenda. And then number three, to make sure that we had a council person to sponsor it. So, you know, you can introduce an ordinance as a person, but you have to have a council person to sponsor it. And so the city clerk will help with that whole process as a citizen if you have an ordinance you want to be put on the agenda. That's where you start. You don't start at the mayor's office, you start with the city clerk.
Okay. Okay. So basically, that city clerk represent for the people anything that they want changed. If people having like, I don't like this what's going on, this is frustrating, or I have to deal with this, the first step is to go to city clerk, not the mayor, because you said a point, because a lot of people and we can get on this later, but a lot of people always want to go to the head when...
Yeah, I would recommend that the first step would be your council person.
Okay.
Because like I said, you do have to have a sponsor.
In your ward.
It doesn't have to be in your ward.
Okay.
You just have to have a sponsor. But I would start with your ward representative.
Okay.
And if they weren't willing, then I would move on to the city clerk and tell her that your ward councilman did not want to sponsor it. If she could recommend a councilman that might sponsor that. Or you could ask somebody else. If you're familiar with council people, you could ask somebody else to sponsor it. But I would start with my representative.
Yes.
What Emma is saying, it is you're duly right to go to the councilman. You have 2 council members representing your ward. Well, let's say if that council person, those 2, are not willing to, you can go to the other 10. And the reason is we have citywide election. So their job is to represent you as well. If it's ever brought down to ward elections only, which is not right now, so you can go to any. Well, at that point, if I go, I would always go to as Emma said, go to the ward, the people that are representing my ward. Well, if I can't get any response in that ward or from those representatives, I would go to the clerk. The clerk, as Emma said, will direct you to someone that will possibly sponsor it. So that is a good avenue to do that. It's kind of like protocol. There's checks and balances that you go through. You go through those first, and then if you run into a brick wall, then you have to go the next step. That's how that process works.
Interesting. And so appreciative of this conversation, because if I have a problem in my neighborhood, okay, knowing who my city council person is, because I take my issue to that city council member and not necessarily to Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Everyday issues, the local government has a greater impact on my life than federal. Right. So being involved and knowing who to go to for your issues is so important. So again, much appreciated you guys taking out your time to explain this to everybody, because I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because as you were just breaking down examples, just talking about, and you wanted to kind of correct me, the first step is supposed to be your councilman. But if they are not, and I can see as I'm thinking about this, well, now as me, as the person who's living in the neighborhood, if I know I'm getting whatever pushback or no response, that I don't have to do nothing. The next step can be either the city clerk, because I think that's the biggest problem, is that when you don't know something, you like, I just can't do nothing.
But now we still have to keep in mind that the mayor still has the final say about what goes on their agenda.
Sure.
So if he doesn't like that ordinance that's in there, he can have it removed.
Okay, well, you made a good transition. Let's talk about the mayor then. So what we've talked about the mayor in several scenarios. What do we and can we expect about the roles of the mayor? Because that position had been brought up several times, and both at this point, the council and city clerk are in some way preparing or reporting to the mayor. So who would like to give me kind of a breakdown of the role of the mayor?
Well, I will try to. The mayor basically is the chief executive of the entire city. Any appointments that are done by the mayor. Salaries are based on the mayor actually has control of those. He really does. He presents those things to the council, which they will have to approve. But as the executive officer, he presides over the council meetings. He also provides leadership to the council. He also is responsible for the municipal functions throughout the entire city. So the load actually falls on him to do all of those things. The other thing is, as the mayor, there are certain things that are done. Let's say if he wanted to appoint a police chief, or if he wanted to appoint, he can appoint those, but he don't really necessarily have to have the approval of the council. That's duly stated in most of the comments. There are certain things that he does have the power over. But as far as city government goes, or financial records and things like that, it has to be approved by the council. So the mayor is kind of like a CEO of any other company. And it also talks about the structure of what powers that a mayor has. The mayor has the right, kind of like a veto of the government, or the president. He can veto, even though the two bodies have put something together, he can veto and have to start over. So that process, he does have that power to do that.
Okay, so
Good job.
yeah, good job. Now you're not running for mayor, but that's a good example of thinking about him as the CEO of a business, and in this case, the city.
Yeah, he sees that the day-to-day functions of the city operate as they should.
Okay. Very interesting. Now, before we started recording, we talked about some other positions that I believe is going to be on the ballot, because one of the things, as I'm thinking of someone who have voted but went into there and was just looking for the local and the city levels, it was other positions that I was unaware of that I was going to be voting for. And I think, to my point and everybody else's, like, we only think the signs that we see in our neighborhoods or our ward is the only people we're going to be voting for. But reality is, there's going to be more on that ballot than we are aware of. And then those people are just as important as some of these other positions we talk about. So if you could, give me a little bit of an insight of what else, from just the local perspective, would I expect to be voting for, besides the three positions that we went over?
Well, can I do it a different way?
Absolutely. You do it the way that's going to be best for me and the people.
Okay. To understand the process, it starts with the federal government. We have the state, and we have the city and local government.
Okay.
To explain this, what people are going to vote for, the presidential elections are going to be there. You're going to see the Senate of the federal government. You're going to see the Congress of the federal government. Then you're going to see the county on the same ballot. You're going to see the justice of the peace, which is like a city councilman to the city.
To the county. Like
to the county, yeah, but that's what I mean, the county to the city. And I was going to say, the city is going to have the mayor's election, which is going to be there. Then you got the city councilmen that are going to be there. You're going to also see the state rep positions as well as the state senate positions also on there. You're going to actually see the collectors for the state on that same ballot. Because in general election, everyone shows up that's running statewide, federal-wide. And then in the city, as Emma stated earlier, there's a stagnate of the city council that are doing. They also stagnate the quorum court the same way. But you also going to have city collectors. You're going to have city clerks, county clerk. You're going to have the constables. So it's going to be about 8, 10, 12 folks on the ballot. It's important that they know who those people are when they go in. You got to know something about them. So we as a group has to start doing the homework to know who these duly people are.
So, which leads me to another question. Is there a way that we can be informed or be aware of these other positions? Is there going to be a website? Is there going to be some online county court clerk? County court clerk. Okay, you had to say that.
That's the website you need to go to.
Okay, so the county clerk court is the web. County court clerk. I'm telling you, boy, you say that about 5 times. you get tongue twisted. The CCC. Okay, and so that is the place that everybody can go.
Website,
yes, that website. And so, other than that, how? What if I don't know about that website? Other than the fact that I'm listening to this, and now I understand and I know that. But if I didn't know that beforehand, that was literally the only way to find that out.
Well, it is, but educating the community is what we're all about and what we're trying to do today. Because on the county site, you're going to see local.
Right.
If generally the county doesn't cover who's running city, they generally don't cover who's running state. Those are separate websites. It would be great if there was one location that everyone can go to. Maybe it's something that you all would generate and we put out in the community, that here are the positions that are being ran in the general election. That could be one site that we could direct people to. It's a one-stop shop.
Right.
And when you're running an election, the good thing is A good example is Walmart. When you go there, they got everything in one house.
Right.
That's what we need is one website to go to so people can click on it and they know who's running and what positions they're running for. So that's what, maybe this is why this is being developed.
Right. Right.
Jonesboro Business Association. That's what we do. Yeah, it's getting involved in this process and meeting people. I felt like there was such a huge void about people having one place to reference and find the candidates and to get the information. And so you would find out why it's important to register to vote. I remember when I first met Emma, I got scolded about not being ready to vote. So I'm ready now. But then it did. But, the importance of registering to vote and then really knowing who the candidates are and then understanding their job descriptions of the offices that they're running for. So, this is some important stuff. So I have a question. If there was something that needed to be done, let's say we needed to have a program developed for a segment of the community, would that be a city council issue that gets resolved, or is that a mayoral issue to get resolved, or is that a state issue? So let's say if I wanted to have funding for a training program for those marginalized, who would I go to for that?
Okay. The first thing I would do in that specific instances is to go to a city staff person.
Okay.
And in this case, it would be the Community Development Office.
Okay.
And talk to the head of the Community Development Office about the idea and try to get her on board. Her office handles the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG as it's known as. And that money is earmarked for marginalized, low-income neighborhoods and or program. So I would start there in that specific instance. And you're not going to get much money, if any, from there, but to have her on your side as someone who can suggest how to go about getting an ordinance or getting some funding, et cetera, et cetera.
So there's a method to my madness on asking that question.
I know.
So the city staff in the Community Development Office, are those people elected or those people appointed?
They are hired.
They are hired. Who does that hiring?
They are not neither one. They are hired.
So who hires that? Is that the mayor who hires those people, or department heads?
The HR director is responsible for the staffing.
Okay.
Now, the head of that department, of course, the mayor wants to interview because that person reports to him.
Okay.
Now, the staff people that work for her, she is in on the hiring because they report to her.
Okay.
To answer your question, but they all have to go through HR just like anybody else would. They're all hired positions.
Okay.
So they, the good thing about that is they will not be changing unless they leave on their own accord or forced to leave or
so
whatever.
So the new mayor will inherit that staff.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And the CBG also has a board of people that they go out in the community of multiple people to counterbalance the monies. In other words, I just happen to be one of the CBG board members. Duly by Emma. But I've been on that board now probably 6 years or longer. Mm-hmm. So what we do is, as the applications come in, we view the applications and we decide which ones are best suited for this money to be divided over. And we are volunteers, so we don't get paid. It's a community involvement program. And I think it's a good thing.
Okay. Well,
That's a lot to absorb.
It's a lot to absorb. And that's why I put this in recording format so you can be able to go back and listen to it. Well, I think for me, this has been a great first step to understanding what are the things that's going on locally in my community, because I think with everything that's going on, educating ourselves to understand what you can do locally, because that's where it starts, is important. And then starting working into from the state levels and from federal level is also important as well. So, one of my goals is to now start transitioning. Now we looked at the local, but start looking at some of the state levels and the federal levels moving forward on some of the next podcasts. And so hopefully I can maybe be able to steal a little bit more time from you guys at that time. But I want to make sure it's not anything else that I left out that you guys may think of before we wrap up for today.
Well, I'm going to say one thing. I know we're going to go to the state level later. But being that I've taken time to look all this information up for him, as running for the state rep, it has came up as to what my duties are or what the role is of a state rep. And basically what it says is you are a public servant for the people. You're to advocate for your citizens of your district. The most important thing that people need to know, out of the state house, there's 100 representatives. State Senate has 35 representatives. Our main responsibility is to, you can actually present a bill. The bill actually is voted on by the House. At that point, both House and State Senate can introduce a bill. Once the bill has, you voted yes on the bill for it to be law, it has to be passed. It passes on to the governor. The governor can either vote for that or he can veto. He can sign a veto. And that's in both House and Senate. They actually come together as a whole once every 2 years to regulate what has happened throughout the fiscal years, to compare notes. They also, in a lot of cases, the House is responsible for, the House and the Senate is responsible for the annual budget, just like the city is. The city council approves the city budget. The quorum court, which is the justice of the peace, lost my train of thought there for a second. But the budget is presented to them, and the justice of the peace has to approve the county budget. So basically what the House does is job description. We approve the state budget for the entire state. And your representation is like with me being position 59, I would come out and talk to the people within my district, find out what they want, their needs, and I take it back to the House. I am their mouthpiece. And mind you, I think I would do a good job.
Okay. Well, that's helpful, and I think I'm going to tap into that a little bit more as for next time as well, because that start bringing in a lot of other questions that I think through as you're speaking about that. So next time we get together, we will continue the conversation of this election season that's coming up. So I thank you very much for taking out the time to speak with me on the podcast today. And thank you guys for listening.
Well, I want to thank for the invite.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, thank you for taking out some time out your day. Thank you, Henry, and thank you, Miss Emma.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely.